Pay close attention because what I'm explaining could be the difference between a comfortable, secure retirement and a financial disaster you never escape. My name is Kevin O'Leary. I've been investing for more than 40 years. I've earned millions. I've lost millions. And every painful mistake taught me lessons most people only learn when it's far too late. Today, I'm going to save you that pain. I'm going to strip away the nonsense, the distractions, the overcomplicated garbage the financial industry loves to drown you in. And I'm going to hand you something incredibly simple. Two funds, just two. Two Vanguard funds. If you're over the age of 65, this is the core of everything you need to understand. Before I tell you exactly which two funds these are and why they matter more than anything else, I need you to do something right now. Hit the subscribe button. Don't tap it, smash it. This channel is about straight talk, real money, and real-world results. I don't waste your time, and I expect the same respect in return. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and let's walk through this together. Here's a truth the financial services industry would rather keep quiet. Once you're over 65, you're playing an entirely different game than someone who's 30 or 40. Time is no longer your biggest advantage. You don't get endless doovers. You can't afford big mistakes. You can't afford to be clever or flashy with your investments. And you absolutely cannot afford to chase the latest trendy stock, cryptocurrency, or whatever nonsense a social media influencer is hyping this week. At this stage of life, you have one job and one job only. Protect what you've built and generate reliable income so you can live comfortably without the fear of running out of money before you run out of life. That's it. Simple. But this is where most people completely blow it. They make things complicated. They end up with 15 mutual funds, 20 individual stocks, bonds they don't understand, and so-called alternative investments their broker talked them into. It's a tangled mess. And you know what that mess delivers? Stress, confusion, and usually terrible results paired with far more risk than they realize. I see this constantly. People sit down with me and show me their portfolios, and it looks like a mutual fund store exploded. Growth funds, value funds, international funds, small cap, large cap, sector funds, everything under the sun. I ask one simple question. Why do you want all of this? And they just stare at me. Blank faces. They have no idea. Someone told them to buy it, so they did. That's not investing. That's gambling in a suit. Once you're over 65, simplicity isn't optional. It's mandatory. You must know exactly what you own, why you own it, and what role it plays in your life. No surprises, no unnecessary complexity, no lying awake at night wondering if you're going to be okay. That's why I'm giving you two funds. Not 5, not 10 too. Because when they're the right two funds, they give you everything you actually need. Diversification, income, stability, and peace of mind. I already know what some of you are thinking. Kevin, two funds sounds way too simple. There has to be a catch. Here's the catch. Simple works. Simple is powerful. Simple is what keeps you alive in the markets when everyone else is panicking and making stupid decisions. Warren Buffett, one of the greatest investors who has ever lived, has said that when he dies, he wants his wife's money invested in a simple index fund, not a hedge fund, not some exotic strategy that requires a PhD to understand, a basic index fund. If that approach is good enough for Warren Buffett's family, it's good enough for you. The financial industry hates this message because complexity is how they get paid. They sell products. They charge fees. They keep you confused so you keep coming back for advice. I'm not selling you anything. I'm giving you the truth. And the truth is this. At 65, boring is your best friend. Boring is beautiful. Boring protects you. Boring lets you sleep at night. I've spent years on Shark Tank. I've invested in hundreds of companies. I've watched businesses succeed and collapse. And one lesson shows up again and again. The businesses that survive are the ones that stay focused, stick to the basics, and don't try to be everything to everyone. That same rule applies to your retirement portfolio. Now, let's talk about what we're actually trying to accomplish in retirement. You need two things. First, you need growth. Not wild, reckless growth. Not doubling your money every year. You need steady, dependable growth that keeps up with inflation so your purchasing power doesn't quietly disappear. And here's a reality that should get your attention. If you're 65 today, you could easily live another 20, 25, even 30 years. That's a long runway. If your money isn't growing at all, inflation will slowly but relentlessly destroy it. Second, And this is just as important. You need stability. You must know that when the market has a bad year, and it will, you're not going to lose half of your life savings. You need to ride out downturns without panicking and selling at exactly the wrong moment. This is where people get it wrong. They either go Allen on growth and take risks they can't afford, or they go Allen on safety and earn nothing while inflation eats them alive. What you need is balance. And that balance is exactly what these two Vanguard funds deliver. Let me be clear. Vanguard isn't paying me. I don't work for them, but I respect what they've built. They pioneered index investing. They run some of the lowest fees in the entire industry, and fees matter more than most people realize. Every dollar you pay in fees is a dollar not working for you. Over 20 or 30 years, high fees can drain tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars from your retirement. Vanguard keeps things simple and inexpensive, which is exactly what you need at this stage. I also need to say this clearly. I'm not your personal financial advisor. I don't know your exact situation, how much you've saved, what your expenses are, whether you have a pension, Social Security, or other income sources. Before you move a dollar, you need to understand your own numbers. What I'm giving you is a framework, a starting point that works for the vast majority of people over 65 who want simplicity, safety, and steady growth. This is the foundation. All right, before we dive into the first fund, if this is already making you realize your portfolio might be overly complicated, hit the like button. It helps this message reach people who desperately need it. And drop a comment below. Tell me how many funds you currently own and whether you're over 65. I read the comments and I want to hear from you. Now, let's get into fund number one. The first fund you need is the Vanguard Total Bond Market Index Fund. I can already hear the groans. Bonds. Kevin, bonds are boring. Bonds don't make money. Listen to me carefully. You're over 65. Boring is exactly what you want. And used correctly, bonds absolutely make money. This fund gives you exposure to thousands of bonds. U.S. government bonds, corporate bonds, mortgage-backed securities, the full investment-grade bond market. When you own this fund, you're effectively lending money to governments and companies, and they pay you interest in return. That's it. Simple. The real power here is diversification. You're not betting on one issuer. You're spread across thousands of bonds with different maturities, rates, and borrowers. If one bond defaults, and with investment-grade bonds, that's rare. It barely registers. Here's why bonds are so valuable at your age. Stability. When stocks lose their minds and drop 10, 15, or 20% in a bad year, bonds usually hold up far better. Sometimes they even rise as investors run towards safety. This negative correlation is your best friend in retirement. You need something that moves differently than stocks. Bonds smooth the ride. They reduce volatility. They help you stay calm when financial news is screaming doom and gloom. Now, let's talk income because this is critical. Bonds pay interest. The Vanguard Total Bond Market Index Fund collects interest from thousands of bonds and distributes it to you on a regular basis. That's real income you can live on. It shows up whether stocks are soaring or crashing. That predictability is priceless when you're retired. You can plan. You can budget. No nasty surprises. And with interest rates where they've been recently, bonds are finally paying respectable yields again. For years, they paid next to nothing. That environment has changed. Historically, the total bond market has delivered around 4 to 5% annually over the long term. No, it's not flashy. It won't double your money overnight. But remember the goal: protect capital, generate income, and minimize risk. 4 to 5% with low volatility is a gift at 65. People also get confused about interest rates. When rates rise, bond prices fall. When rates fall, bond prices rise. That's an inverse relationship. But in this fund, it's not as scary as it sounds. It holds bonds of many different maturities. If rates rise, yes, prices may dip temporarily, but over time, maturing bonds are replaced with new ones at higher rates. The fund adapts. You're holding this for income and stability, not trading it. So, how much of your portfolio should be here? As a general rule, 40 to 60%. Forget the old advice that says your bond percentage should equal your age. That's too conservative for most people today. You're likely to live decades longer. You need growth, too, but we'll get to that. If you're very conservative and losses keep you up at night, lean towards 60% bonds. If you're comfortable with some volatility, lean toward 40%. Just don't go below 40% and don't go above 60%. Fees matter here, too. The expense ratio on this fund is tiny, just a fraction of a percent. Compare that to actively managed bond funds charging 1% or more. On $100,000, you might pay $50 a year instead of $1,000. And studies show active managers usually don't outperform anyway. Why pay more for worse results? Some people ask about buying individual bonds instead if you're managing millions and know what you're doing. That can work. For most people, it's impractical. It requires deep expertise and significant capital. This fund does all the work for you with instant diversification. Think of this bond fund as your anchor. It's not exciting. It's not something you brag about, but it protects your wealth and provides dependable income. In my experience, the boring stuff is what actually works long-term. Now, let's move to fund number 2 because defense alone isn't enough. Fund number 2 is the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund. This is your growth engine. This is what keeps your money growing and fighting inflation over the next 20 or 30 years. If you're thinking, I'm over 65, shouldn't I be out of stocks? No, that's outdated and dangerous thinking. If you're 65 and live to 90, that's 25 years. You can't afford to sit entirely in bonds. This fund owns virtually every publicly traded company in the United States. Thousands of them, big names, small companies, every sector. When you buy it, you're buying the entire American economy. And betting against the American economy over the long term has been a losing bet for more than a century. This fund is diversified, low cost, and passive. You don't pick stocks, you don't watch the news, you just own the market. Historically, the total stock market has returned around 9 to 10% annually over the long run. Some years are ugly, some are amazing, but over decades, it averages out. That's how wealth is built. Yes, stocks are volatile. That's why you need bonds alongside them. If stocks drop 30%, your bond allocation cushions the blow. If you're 40 to 60% in bonds, the remaining 40 to 60% goes here. A 50-50 split is perfectly reasonable for most people over 65. Rebalancing matters. Once a year, bring your portfolio back to target. Sell what went up, buy what went down. It keeps risk under control and forces discipline. Dividends are another bonus. Many companies pay them and the fund passes them to you. That's extra income on top of bond interest. Here's the bottom line. These two funds are enough. You don't need anything else. They give you diversification, low cost, growth, stability, and simplicity. Action steps are simple. Know your numbers. Pick your allocation. Open a Vanguard account. Buy the two funds. Rebalance once a year. That's it. I've seen every market imaginable. This approach works. It's not exciting, but at 65, working is what matters. Your goal isn't to get rich fast. It's to not get poor slowly. Subscribe, like, comment. Take control. Keep it simple. Two funds. Safe, smart, proven. Now go make it happen.